Yeah, I'm from basically the state of Washington, and I was born in a town named Wenatchee. Wenatchee means meeting of the waters, as the Wenatchee River, the Columbia River meet at this point. But I consider my hometown to be Walla Walla, Washington. When I was at the University of Chicago, I developed a relationship with a man who was, when the medical school moved from San Francisco down to the campus, was recruited as the first chairman of the Department of Psychiatry. And he invited me to join the faculty, and so I made a trip out to Stanford in January. Well, my car was buried. This was from, I was in New York at the time at the Mount Sinai Medical Center. My car was buried in the snow. The steam heat had gone off and our apartment was freezing. And so when I arrived at Stanford in January, mind you, this was January '62, I guess, it was like this. I couldn't believe it. And in the course of wandering around, we actually went, there was a place in the Town and Country Shopping Center called Edie's, and we got ice cream cones, and we were walking around in the warm sunshine licking our ice cream cones. I said, you know, I'll pay you to come to Stanford. And you know, the weather has been, among other things, you know, I guess you could say the academic excellence, the athletic excellence, and the weather would be the big three that brought me out here. Well, as I pursued my interest in sleep, I became aware of the fact that falling asleep at the wheel, although I knew it existed, but I didn't realize that it was like one of the #1 causes of fatal driving accidents, and God knows how many other accidents that weren't fatal, maybe in the hundreds. And I wanted to actually get out a message that would, you know, that people would, #1, become aware of being drowsy, which is heavy eyelids. And then the phrase drowsiness is red alert just seemed to click, and people sort of picked up on it. And I've been around the world actually and had, I guess, ex-students sort of sidle up to me and say, drowsiness is red alert, and then disappear into the crowd. That's very gratifying. I was actually invited to the White House to tell White House people, including the president and his wife, you know, what sleep was all about, sleep disorders and so on. I also had a very memorable moment when Chelsea Clinton was supposed to be going home. Her mother was in her room packing for her. That's Mrs. Clinton, who is now running for president. And I spent about an hour with Hillary Clinton telling her what happens in sleep, about sleep disorders and so on. And I think she's quite knowledgeable about this area now. I think it's not widely known that I was actually a professional jazz musician when I paid my way through college playing. Back then, I always think what musicians, the hourly fee was kind of incredible compared to today's fee. But and I played with some people who really made it big. #1 being Quincy Jones, who most people know. He actually is more of he was a very, very great trumpet player, but he's really, I would say, his outstanding career has been promoting other bands and other musicians. As I studied sleep, it became more and more obvious that there were lots and lots of abnormal sleep problems. So the prevalence of this was way higher than anybody had ever suspected. Well, what I'm very satisfied with today is we opened the world's first sleep disorders clinic in the summer of 1970, #1. There are now about approaching 3,000 in the United States, so I feel that I am probably more responsible than anyone else for creating an honest-to-God clinical research, scientific discipline, sleep disorders medicine that did not exist prior to our efforts. That would be, I won't say study harder, but do more, take more advantage of the opportunities that are really presented by the faculty that you're associated with and what they've been doing, and take be much more aggressive about getting acquainted with professors. You know, like I used to ask students, how many of you have been out and actually taken the tour of the Stanford Linear Accelerator Center? You know, relatively few. How many of you have been to the top of Hoover Tower? Well, more than I would say, but you know, if you can go through a whole litany of questions about what's going on here, you'll find that by and large people haven't done what they could do to take advantage of the experience, which is all too short. You know, the 4 years just go whoop, and then it's time to go somewhere else, unless you're lucky enough to get into graduate school here.